Welcome back to Seek a Strength. Today's video is brought to you by the Seek a Strength stream of weightlifting programs. We have our monthly continuous block of weightlifting programs, 4 weeks per block, 4 sessions per week. Then of course we have our ever popular and ever successful 12-week beginner program. And finally we have our very important for weightlifters, our squat, pull and press, because you can never be too strong as a weightlifter. Welcome back to my trip down memory lane, or my Lifter of the Week series, which isn't every week, which is sporadic. But this week's one is Liao Hui. Liao Hui. If I'm saying that wrong, don't correct me, because I will forget it. Liao Hui. So Liao Hui is one of the best 69 kilo lifters. Actually, one of the best, or one of the best weightlifters ever, if we go by in terms of Sinclair. Top 10, maybe top 15, I think. Maybe top 15 is closer. So definitely in the late 470s or potentially the 480s. Actually, let me check what Seb said. 478.56, number 21 ever. So a phenomenally good weightlifter. Now, before we get going, unfortunately, we need to discuss one particular incident with Liao Hui. And that is the 220 kilo jerk and the 260 kilo front squat. So these are unfortunately not real. So that 220 kilo jerk, when you look at it first, you'd be like, wow, that looks way too easy for a 220 kilo jerk from a 70 odd kilo man. And from what I remember when this came out, the inside plates, the really bright red ones, are actually just technique plates, and it's 120. I think this was confirmed by Nat Aram. I don't know why Mass Strength did this. I don't know if Liao Hui thought it was a joke and they used it as a seriousness. But this 220 kilo rack jerk, of course, is not real. It could even be 170, but it's certainly not 220. I don't know why people believe that. I suppose it's fair enough. And then you can see the same red plates in that 260 front squat, which also is not, I don't think it's real. I think it's the same one. So I think that's actually 200, which is incredibly impressive. And I'm sure he could front squat probably close to 230, 240. But the best back squat we'd seen from him was something like 275. So just before we get going, if anyone is expecting those lifts, that's a little bit of an issue, I suppose, or a little bit of just a point of contention. Could he probably have jerked 220 if he trained really hard for it and bulked up in the late 70s? Certainly, we saw him cleaning 211, so 220 wouldn't be impossible, but I don't think it would have been with such consummate ease, unfortunately. Now, on to the good stuff. So we pick up somewhere in the late, obviously there's a lot of different lifts that we could have got with Liao Hui or whatever, but I've just got a random things that I remember a lot from him, some cooler footage. So let's start with his best lifts in training from what we've seen on video. So we've got a 205 kilo clean and jerk, a 69, probably 71 odd kilos. I don't know if he talked a lot. I remember he talked a lot about losing weight for Beijing was really hard. But pull under the clean is very, very good. Really high contact, and we'll talk about that later. But his jerk was really the incredible thing. He did a lot of internal rotation of the shoulders, which I actually think did him a disservice. But of course, he's holding 205 kilos overhead at 69. And then we had his 170 kilo snatch. So some of the great things about his lifting really is that jerk is phenomenal. It's so strong. The dip and drive is positionally so good. Split jerk, I think, is perfect for his body type. Oftentimes it'll look different, but that internal rotation overhead, I'd like to know the reasons for their doing it. In general, he didn't lose any weight to press out, so I mean, what does it matter essentially? So then on his 170 kilo snatch, his real dominant trait, or his real positive trait in regards to snatching, was his speed under the barbells. Of course, he had a very strong pull, like all Chinese weightlifters do, but his speed under the barbell was something, that was superb. And of course, physically, he's a specimen. So next we've got is the 198 kilo clean and jerk in Turkey in the World Championships in 2010. So very famous, a very notable part of his career was Liao Hui's subsequent ban for bolting on after this lift. Now this is one of these lifts that I've watched so many times that you just would not believe. This is actually shot by an Irish weightlifter, Wayne Healy. So this 198 is just something else. So this was his first world record. He competed in 2008 Olympics and won that, of course. Didn't set world records and then came out for this. A little bit of a double dip, but I mean, who's watching? Now, the infamous moment about this was he was subsequently banned for use of boldenone. Now at the time everyone was like, why was it boldenone that he was banned for? Why would he be using boldenone? Everyone was kind of the impression that boldenone's detection time was something like close to 2 years or a year and a half, something extortionately long for weightlifters. Now, there's a lot of different rumours, and we don't really know which one of those are true, but I'll tell you the rumour I heard at the time in 2011. So my coach went to the 2011 Worlds, and the rumour going around the World Championships training hall in Paris, in the Disneyland car park, no less. Disneyland, that's right. 2011 Worlds was held in Disneyland, and the training hall was in one of the underground car parks. And the rumour going around was that Liao Hui. Liao Hui? Oh my god, have I forgotten how to say it already? Liao Hui tested positive for boldenone because at the time the Chinese Weightlifting Federation didn't have a lot of money temporarily post the Beijing Olympics, and they didn't have a lot of money or have enough money to pay off Thomas Asian for the bribe to prevent him from testing positive. Now, there is a couple of different kind of variations or a couple of thought processes behind that. It would be like, why did he have boldenone in the system in the first place? So was it a false sample from the IWF? Did they plant that sample, which could very well happen? We know the levels of corruption are pretty intense in IWF, especially in this heyday. Was he framed and then he subsequently got tested? So was he framed by someone internally in China and then they couldn't afford to it, or they didn't want to? Was another story I heard. So if anyone's any other inside scoop on that, or any kind of story you've heard, then I'd be interested. I think the plausibility that Thomas Asian was twisting the Chinese government or the Chinese Weightlifting Federation's arm is very, very plausible, and it's certainly a possibility. Either way, Liao Hui's career kind of never really got his full momentum, his full stride going, I think. Now, he did come back after this and clean and jerk the world record again in 2013, but he did miss that London Olympics, and maybe for the best given the retest we saw, except for no Chinese weightlifters, of course, and the infamous backflip after that 198. So here's a clip of that 195 kilos from the 2013. So very strong clean, full grip on the bar, real vertical elbows, and then smashing the barbell overhead in the jerk position. Beautifully straight wrist position. Of course, phenomenal physique and incredibly happy. Everyone was waiting for his return here. Okay, so this is one of those, I think, like compilations of his lifting. So we have a lot of squatting. Squatting is very pretty. We didn't see a lot of heavy squats from him. So I think the heaviest we seen on video was 275. And for a 69 kilo man, obviously it's phenomenally impressive. Would I think he's done more? If we put into perspective, when maybe Liu Zhaojun's best back squat was 300 or 305, I think, as a 77, so slightly overweight. So would Liao Hui have done more than 275? We're not really sure. It's hard to say. Possible, but we don't know. Very, very strong lifter. One of the things I want to talk about here in regards to your own training, though, I want to talk about the kind of use of heavy squats and heavy pulls in training. There was a video of him failing heavy pulls, but I cannot find the life of me. I cannot for the life of me find where that video is. So one of the main things I want you guys to think about when it comes to heavy squatting and heavy pulling in training, my little pumpkins, my little citizens of Sikhistan, I want you to think about two different things when it comes to your training. So I want you to have a strong pull. I think it's very, very beneficial. Weightlifting is a sport where you need a lot of force production. A lot of force production compared to other sports, of course. Not compared to powerlifting, for example, but you certainly need a lot of capability to produce force. So heavy lifts are absolute requisite. Now, there is some caveats that comes with that, though. Weightlifting is not only a high force production force, it is also a high rate of force production sport. So you need to be strong, but you also need to be able to express that speed strength as fast as possible. Now, while I want you to have a strong back, and I think it's okay for your pulls, especially your clean pulls, I'm really talking about clean pulls in this scenario. I really think it's important for your clean pulls to be strong, and it's definitely okay for your clean pulls to go over your 1RM clean and jerk. I think that is perfectly acceptable, and I think it's beneficial for the long-term development of your weightlifting career. But there is some asterisks. There's some caveats around that I just want you to be aware of. One, I still want you to kind of periodize your pulls, and I still want you to peak your pulls at the same time as you're squatting, for example, or depending on where you're in training, it might be a similar time to your lifts. I want you to be strong in your back and your pulling positions. But the most important aspect I want you to remember about your pulls is, instead of going for an absolute 1RM from the floor, I want you to hit a 1RM with the caveat that the barbell is still moving fast. So it's very important that barbell speed is still high. So you might say, how would I measure this? So you could get a velocity meter if you wanted to, and I think that would be beneficial, but certainly not necessary. There's a much simpler and much more straightforward way of knowing if your pulls are too slow. If they feel too slow, then they are too slow, and it's perfectly acceptable. You can get an experienced coach to watch you or other lifters to watch you and watch your own videos back, to be honest with yourself. But we all know that feeling after a couple of months of doing heavy cleans and heavy pulls. We know the feeling of when a pull is moving fast enough for us to potentially clean it. Now, it doesn't have to be the exact same speed, but it needs to be very, very, very close to the full speed of a clean and jerk. So when you're doing those heavy pulls, I still want you to try and hit heavy singles or heavier singles at certain points in the year when it is appropriate with your cyclical loading of smart periodization. But it needs to be with high speed and to a lesser extent, but still important, with very, very similar positions to your clean technique, okay? Now, is this a concern you might ask in the squat, for example, or you might say, why do we see the Chinese lifters doing such heavy pulls all the time? One, I think I would just say that at the time, a lot of people would have disagreed with weightlifters, the Chinese team doing a lot of heavy pulls, and I think a lot of coaches would still disagree with their use of them. I think ultimately it's probably net neutral for a Chinese weightlifting team that last very heavy percentage, or it's a slight positive in terms of like psychological gains. We hear like Liu Hui talking about he does these heavy pulls and he feels really strong after them. So it's potential that is very slightly positive in the psychological aspect. Now, there's probably 3 reasons why these heavy pulls don't really make a massive negative difference like they would almost certainly make for you. One, these Chinese weightlifters that we see in these heavy pulls that we see doing them are some of the genetic elite in the whole world in terms of weightlifting. So the chance that this slow rate of force development on heavy pulls would negatively reinforce their ability to move fast, and we do have lots of good research in relation to the practicing of slow speed movements can have a negative effect on your ability to move fast. But I think because they're genetic elite, number one, that is very unlikely to make a huge difference to them. Number two, they're on the use of performance enhancing drugs, which will massively negate the negative effects or potential negative effects from these heavy pulls. And number three, they're of course doing weightlifting, which is a speed strength sport. They are doing a lot of weightlifting. They've done a lot of weightlifting. So I think when you bring these kind of 3 elements into that, then the likelihood is that it is not going to be a huge negative for them, like it almost certainly would be for you. The chances are, unfortunately, that your genetics are at the kind of the middle of that bell curve here in terms of genetic talent. You're not on performance enhancing drugs, or at least I hope you're not. And you don't have a lot of weightlifting done just yet. So I want you to do those kind of heavy pulls, with the asterisk of speed strength, or in terms of like still fast, but have it as a 1RM in your head. Note that down. Note what your best clean and jerk was when you did that heavy pull at fast speeds, and then try and improve it next time and see how that develops with your relationship with your clean and your clean pull. You might ask then, is this the same for the back squat? Well, for our back squat, it's not necessarily the same. Our barbell in the clean deadlift, or the deadlift, will slow down much further away from our 1RM than it will in the back squat. Like our barbell might slow down at like 70% in the deadlift, and we might get another 30 or 40 kilos out of it. In the back squat, however, we're really limited by barbell speed. We're intrinsically aware of that, and as soon as it starts to slow down, it gets a lot harder to make heavy back squats. So most of the time, people just won't spend a lot of time doing heavy back squats. But if they do, it certainly will have a detrimental effect. If you do these heavy singles all the time, it will not be productive for your weightlifting. But you still need stronger legs, and you still need that high force development. So we need to balance these two. So definitely would encourage you to push your squat and pull. Now, my little tangent diatribe aside, diatribe. We've just got some more squats from Liao Hui. Lots of front rack holds. Some power jerks. Okay, so another thing I want to talk about with Liao Hui is that kind of rowing into his hip like Toshiki does at heavier or at lighter weights. But then at his best condition, when he's best cleans, he actually doesn't do that. Now we'll see in some sets where he does that kind of rowing into his hip, we'll actually see that he when he does that kind of bending the arms into the hip, his timing is off and he often misses the bounce. But then when you see his best clean and jerks where he doesn't bend his arms, so he still has that anatomical bend in his arms, that kind of Vitruvian man bend in his arms or whatever, which I think is totally fine, but he's not actively rolling the barbell into his hip. His timing is so much better. So if you look at like that 200 kilo clean and jerk he did at Nationals, or he's 205, he has the anatomical bend, but he has no row into his bend, but then no row into his hips. But then if you look at some of the competition lifts he did, where he has that heavy pull, like in some competitions, he's really missing that timing. The barbell looks like it's slowing down and it's really crashing on him. Some front squats here. So massively upright in his front squats. So still full grip, in phenomenal conditioning, great abs, phenomenal abs. So back squatting. That's this little 130. So you've got that kind of overhead position, 130 here. But what are we front squatting there? So it looks like this is 200. So moving very well. 220, pause. So this is a 220 kilo front squat. So was the likelihood he was doing that 260 with such ease? You know, I think it's fair to say it probably wasn't. It might have been a joke or something and it just got a little bit out of hand. Very flexible lifter, but also incredibly stable, which is exactly what you want for weightlifting. So here's again, nice upright front squats, 170. Saw him do a lot of pause front squats from what we did see, so it was interesting. If I had to describe Liao Hui, I'd say he's just a fucking horse. And again, they loved finishing with these front rack holds. Some push press. We don't see the Chinese team doing a lot of push press, but it's interesting to see him doing very well practiced at them too, which is interesting. Incredibly strong lifter. Of course, the upper back strength is massive. I feel like Liao Hui, why do I keep saying that wrong? Got done out of it a lot in his career. I feel like he just got absolutely steel rolled, a phenomenal variation, but I think he just got done out of his career a lot. I think he never really got into his stride. It might have been political reasons. Like, why didn't they send him in 2016? Give him a chance at another Olympics. Retired quite early. Man, it's so strange. I think he used to live for the People's Liberation Army kind of stream of sports. You see him in a uniform and stuff sometimes. So it's so strange. I'd love to know what really went down. Because he was just a superstar. He looked like a rock star. Got the rock star hairstyle. 2017. So I think we'll see some of that heavier arm bend from what I've seen, and then we'll see a clip after where he's got those straighter arms. You know, not to make this all technical analysis or all analyzing the training. We're here to enjoy it as much as ever, but I think there's some useful stuff, of course, all the time. So this is 194. He'll weight very well within his range. Got them gold antas on, because if there's a man who deserves them, it's this man for gold antas. So you'll see here, as far as I remember, he misses the bounce a lot, and you'll see that really aggressive arm bend, which he doesn't always do. So mistimed. I'm almost certain he jerks this though. Bam. Ooh. If that was the 2016 Olympics or 2021 Olympics, with all the red lights. So here's this 200 kilo clean and jerk, one of his best 200 kilo clean and jerks we saw from him. You'll see how well this is. So you'll see another angle in a second, but there's very minimal arm bend in this one, and the timing is so much better, so much faster under. Superb. And look at that jerk, so powerful overhead. I wonder what his best push press was. A little bit unstable, but he is a 69 kilo male, clean and jerking 200 kilos. So how stable do we expect him to be? Very jacked loaders, which is always very valuable. There's that guy that squatted 200 for multiple reps. So here's this 200 from the front. So just a little bit of anatomical bend, which is fine. And then we got such ease of that 200 kilo clean and jerk. Ridiculous. Really had knees out in the jerk, which sometimes does work from people. Not all the time, but can be very beneficial for some people who can keep their lower back and glutes in good timing and integrity. So phenomenal clean. That high pocket is not necessary in the clean. What we want is a fast bar. That fast bar doesn't need to be super high. The high pocket is for the snatch. We want to get the barbell high. That kind of contact point is just for us to give us time in the clean to get under, and he's a great example of that. Such a dominant lifter when he lifts weights. He's so confident of things. He's very in control of the barbell. And here's I think this was his last big international competition, the 2017 IWF Grand Prix or Grand Prix. Maybe they're pricks, who knows. So 170 as a 77. A very laboured pull, but certainly 170 at 77. Of course it's going to be laboured, but a great lifter. So 170, 160, 170, crazy attempts. I think this was in China actually. I think this was the IWF Chinese Grand Prix. Beautiful singlets. Then we saw him come out for, there's 170 again. So then we saw him come out to attempt a 211 kilo clean and jerk, which was, technically broken at Rio Olympics, which may not be now, but he cleaned it, which everyone was incredibly impressed by. So that 211 kilo clean was kind of his last competition lift in international competitions, and what a lifter. So that was Liao Hui. So that was Liao Hui. He one of the greats in weightlifting. I think he kind of got done out of it for political reasons, which I think is very unfortunate and is a shame to see. Of course, he got some advantages for other political reasons too, so it's a shame Now obviously they heavily favoured Xi Jiang as he came up through the ranks and turned out to not be a bad bit, but why couldn't they have bet on our boy? Let him at it. Let him have his time. Xi Jiang's still young, and they already had another successful Xi Jiang, so we don't need two of them. We could have done with Liao Hui. What a shame. But some phenomenal lifting, great memories of watching these videos when I just started weightlifting. A rock star of a lifter, so it's great to see. Thanks for watching.